like Miami. Miami, 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 Miami. It feels like Miami.
Welcome to the Heat Beat Podcast. I'm your host, your very hoarse host, Giancarlo Navas. I took, I'm going to be the first one to say it. Well, let me introduce my guest. With me today, Andrew Claudio of Knicks Film School, which, listen, we beef with the Knicks. We beef with Knicks fans. That's what we do. Those motherfuckers at Knicks Film School are doing some of the best job covering the series, and they give Miami the credit that they're due, I think, and Andrew and his team over there, and I say this as somebody who has a lot of respect for Andrew and what they do over there, to play in a series where you're losing and it doesn't look good, for the amount of work that those guys put in, watch the film, analyze it from both sides. Just shout out to you guys. Andrew, welcome to the program, your second time.
Thank you, G. And I feel like I'm being set up. I
No,
feel like
it's
that
not.
was a lot of buttering up, so that way we could bring up the fact that I had you on our show, and I told you that the Knicks were going to win this in 6 games, that they had four of the 6 best players in the series, or 6 of the best 8, whatever I said, it was wrong. And here we are sitting here on the verge of yet another Miami Heat conquest over the New York Knicks. I appreciate the kind words. We're doing a good job. We're doing our part. I wish the Knicks were doing the same.
Before I make you eat shit, highlight the guys that are doing the work and where they can follow them, because I want Heat fans, be nice, to go follow these people, because I learned from them, and I hope you guys will also learn basketball from them. So where can they find some of the guys on your team?
So all jokes aside, we do have like a really good crew that's covering both the Knicks and both the series. That has to start with John Macri at JC Macri NBA, Jeremy Cohen, the Coincidence is his name, Ben Ritholtz and DJ Zulo, who are our film guys, have been killing it, breaking down the film and the X's and O's. I learn something every time that they do a Knicks film session. Like, the film school part of it is quite literally what they do. Benji, so Ben Ritholtz, we call him Benji, who's at Ben Ritholtz NBA. He's been doing this new thing on Playback. The thing you guys,
no, we're familiar. Yeah, we're familiar with your game.
So they have a new screen share feature where you can share like your Synergy or your League Pass and break down film and X's and O's. And he's literally teaching a film class on this series. And like game 1, I recognized all the problems that the Knicks had from his film class. And, he broke down game 2 and it was really good. So if you want to look at I don't even think he does it from a Knicks perspective. He actually highlights things that Miami has done well in this series. Both DJ and Benji have done a great job. So I suggest following them.
That's why I recommend it to the listeners, because you'll learn something. IRV42 said, started following, listening, and make fun of them, but they know they actually do great work. So listen,
thank you.
We love that. I am hoarse as hell. Audience, I planned a trip this weekend a long time ago because I thought Miami wasn't going to be in the playoffs at this time. And I was touring the American South, place that I never thought I'd be. I went to the Kentucky Derby. I bet on a Japanese horse. I bet a lot of money and lost. I don't care. I was fucking fucked up on mint juleps, watching Heat Knicks, partying, having a good time, and then went to Nashville. I had never been to Nashville. Nashville's pretty cool.
Nashville's dope.
I was unfamiliar with how these white people party, but it was. I tell you, it was fun.
Did you see any bridal parties going by, or any bachelorette parties going by on a tractor?
There was a Taylor Swift concert that night, so there was just a lot of shit happening. It was the rain delayed. I stumbled out of a bar like 3 a.m. By the way, So, and then I come out. There's like a horde of fucking people in the street. I was like, "What the hell happened?" Taylor Swift got out. So after she got rain delayed. So yeah. So I'm a little hoarse. Andrew's here with me to break down the series and give you the energy. Chat is happy. We're schmoving. Let's talk. It's currently 81 degrees right now in Miami, Andrew. It is hot. It is warm. I'm inside. I don't know if I could do this podcast, actually. It's warm. I'm sweating. I thought of doing it in a tank top. I have a huge like sweat stain on my back. Andrew, I if this affects me as a podcaster, I don't even know how it affects these poor basketball players that are in these 5-star hotels and then go on these very like well air-conditioned team buses into a very modern arena. How can they play in the evening of all times when it's so hot?
I can't. Well, this is the second time a team from New York has brought up the weather in Miami. Didn't the Bills do this?
The Bills did
when they were
this.
down in Miami. It's way too hot. How does the Dolphins not have a roof over their stadium? Thankfully, the Bills are what we call almost Canada, and we do not acknowledge them as one of New York's teams. And I can also acknowledge that Jalen Rose, while he played for the Knicks for half a season, we do not claim him either. And while Mike Greenberg claims to be not a knower of all things Knicks basketball, I also do not claim him. I can't even entertain how stupid that narrative has become.
How are Knicks fans?
It's so dumb.
Because complaining about the officials, every fan base is going to do that all the time. That's whatever. Nick Muse going out sad. You hate to see it, but that's whatever. That's normal. This is next level shit, dude. So we're laughing at it. There's no way your fan base is like, yeah, you're Jalen Rose is spitting. This guy's making good points.
He's though not the intelligent part of the fan base. I need that clarified. The smart part of the fan base is not saying he has a good point. It may be the coping part of the fan base where they're grasping at straws as to how this became a 3-1 deficit. But I know I have look, I saw Alf's tweet earlier today, like why you don't watch ESPN. That's Exhibit A. Exhibit B is literally every quote tweet I saw today of Stephen A. Smith being like, yo, I'm done with Julius Randle. I'm disgraced with RJ
He
Barrett.
threw up. Andrew, please be
Wash.
respectful. Stephen A. Smith threw up. Listen, vomiting's not very fun. He went through a lot last.
Listen, I understand entertainment's a thing. I understand that we've gotten so far away from actually trying to inform people that we're just trying to entertain them. But the further and further away from like good back and forth discourse that ESPN becomes, the closer and closer they get to Fox News, and it's why I don't watch it anymore.
Fuck that. Amen to that. Chat says, Elites XBL says, thank you for not giving it to the narrative, Andrew. Although you're named after my favorite hurricane. I don't know if you're familiar with hurricane.
Oh my God, why is that a favorite hurricane?
I think he's being sarcastic.
I hope.
I'm glad you know what that was. That shit.
A devastating hurricane.
That's Hurricane Andrew is so fucked up it changed all the construction rules here.
I remember. Believe me, I don't remember, but obviously, it's one of the first things you read about, especially being an Andrew.
Yeah, he was,
when you've heard it before. I met a girl in college named Katrina. Let's just say she wished she was.
My friend dated a Katrina too, and it wasn't. It was around that time, so
yeah.
Unfortunately, they should name him something else. Elise is like, yeah, he's kidding. Oh, you lived in Naranja. Ooh. Well, glad you're still here with us, bud.
Yes, there you go.
Andrew. So here we are. Miami's at the cusp. They're up 3-1. They're up 3-1. A game away. They're going into MSG North, I guess, right? The North Branch.
That I'll claim. That
you'll claim. The
yes.
MSG North, where the Possums check your ticket at the gate.
Mm-hmm.
So they're going up there. They're playing a game. How did we get here? Because I went on your show and we broke down the series. And listen. Chet knows I wasn't like rah. I'm rah now. But I was, from a basketball perspective, I was like, well, at some point they gotta like not shoot well, right? That's what I was thinking. I was like, yeah, Max is going to like be Max and Gabe is going to, right? And in a way, some of that has happened. They've all just not done it at the same time. Like Gabe didn't have a good game. Max had a good game, right? And that usually they would all just have bad games. So I just want to talk about like how we got here, because I think we talked about how the role players on New York were going to just outplay the Miami role players. That's what a lot of Knicks fans, I think, felt. And I don't think that was like the most crazy thing in the world. The Miami's role players was really not their strength throughout the year. I think we all discussed, even after the Bucks series, that depth would not be something that we would have ever considered to be a strength of this Heat team. And yet it has been. I mean, they're playing Zeller, like Lowry Zeller minutes are like decimating New York, and that pick and roll is like really. So I guess let's start there. Like, the battle of the benches has just gone Miami's way. I think, and I want to start with Kyle Lowry because I think that he's really the guy that has been the difference maker. I see Worldwide Wob just wants Kyle Lowry abolished. I see New Yorkers are not happy about Kyle Lowry. I think he has been the secret sauce to getting these bench units going.
Gee, you know why we're not happy about Kyle Lowry?
Because he's playing
Because
well.
none of you were happy about Kyle Lowry.
I was. Listen, I was Kyle Lowry.
Okay, I understand you're the apologist, extremist, whatever you want to.
I'm an extremist now.
But guys, can we have the Kyle Lowry conversation? We watched the Whopper video. We saw how you treated him for
that podcast
most of the season. Regardless, okay. The point being, I stand by what I said before the series. I thought there was a depth advantage because I listened to every single Miami Heat fan that trashed their team and all these undrafteds throughout the season. That was informing me. A lot of us did not see this coming. And what I don't even necessarily think it's a regret because I did mention it, but what I underestimated before the series was that y'all have been here before, that this core was in the conference finals last year. And the Knicks, Julius Randle made the playoffs once and was ass. Jalen Brunson made the conference finals last year, but as a number 2, not a number 1. And everybody else has not made it out of the first round or has never played in the playoffs before. So while we were able to benefit from that against Cleveland, which I just thought that I'm riding the high of okay, they got their playoff experience.
They look the worst out of all this, Andrew. Cleveland,
the Cavs, yes, they look the worst.
Bro,
out of all this.
Yikes!
The fact that Cody Zeller and Bam and Caleb Martin and Kevin Love have been able to turn Mitchell Robinson into a non-factor, and you have Allen and Mobley questioning if the lights were too bright after 5 games against the Mitchell and against Mitchell Robinson, not even Julius Randle, just against Mitchell Robinson. I of course assumed that Mitch would be able to still exist. What I underestimated the most was the championship pedigree that I'll give it championship pedigree, even though you guys haven't won it yet. An Eastern Conference championship pedigree.
Spo's been there. UD's been there. Lowry's a champion. Kevin Love's a champion.
So there you go. But I'm saying more like Jimmy and the guys that Bam, the
and
actual
they've been to
core
the
that
finals.
was there last year.
For sure.
The fact that y'all have been here before, we were able to get away with so much the bad shooting and bad turnovers and Julius being a pumpkin in the first round and really nothing from Quickly. And you still won it in 5 games, dominating fashion. And I underestimated just how inexperienced Cleveland was, just how not ready Cleveland was, and the mistakes they made, this Miami Heat team is not going to make. And since game 1, it's been they don't make a ton of mistakes. They don't turn the ball over. They're sound. Spo has them knowing exactly what they need to do on every possession. They're disciplined. The video that DJ put out today of them making sure on all their threes, somebody's getting to the foul line. Gee, the most frustrating part about that's a Thibs principle. He's been preaching it all season because the Knicks take enough threes, but everybody's getting to the foul line. Crashing the boards is the Knicks thing, right? And so that principle, which is why they missed Emmanuel Quickly. He's good at getting those long rebounds, but that's a Josh Hart thing. That's a Emmanuel Quickly thing. That's a Knicks principle that they've abided by all season. And to get beaten that way, that's why yesterday was so deflating, defeating, whatever you want to call it. And it's why, the coaching advantage that I said you had, I underestimated how much of an advantage it would be. The depth being flipped. I know this started with Kyle Lowry. I'll get back to it.
No. And listen, we're show that wanders, so don't even worry.
So the depth flipping your direction is because your coach took every single depth piece the Knicks had out of the equation. And I gotta credit Kyle Lowry for returning to playoff form all of a sudden. Kevin Love for being the veteran that knew the touchdown passes he's been throwing since game 1. The
high-low passes between he and Bam have been really, really successful.
You mentioned the pick and roll that he's been doing that Kyle Lowry's been doing with Zeller on the second unit. That's the thing I didn't think. When I looked at Cody Zeller, it's okay, so how soon before he's not playing?
Exactly.
In this. Same thing with Highsmith. The fact that Haywood Highsmith is a more productive piece of this rotation or just of this series than Obi Toppin is just like so disappointing to what the Knicks were supposed to be coming into this series. And while we knew we didn't have the top end talent advantage, whether it's Bam and Jimmy 1 and 2, I always thought the Knicks, like if Brunson's at 2 or he's 3, the Knicks still had 3 through 5 or 6. And that's just like not the case. Like Brunson creeps into the top 4 or 5. And then like 1 through 6 or 7, I got to give it to the Heat. That's how much this has flipped this series. And it's why the Heat are up 3-1.
It's crazy, Andrew. And so I watch, and like I didn't think they played that well yesterday. I thought Bam played well for like.
Can I give you an even hotter take?
Please go.
I didn't think they played that well in Game 3 either. And the Knicks lost by almost 20 points.
Although I was inebriated as fuck betting on horses that day, so I don't trust my judgment on how Miami played, but I didn't feel it at the time either. I thought, actually, to be honest with you, I think the best game they played was Game 2.
Right. Well, the shooting got worse as the game went along.
Yeah.
I think if you want to look at the best the Heat have looked this series, I would go to the second half of Game 1.
Absolutely, yeah.
That's when they overcame the deficit, and that's the first time I was like, oh, this is not the Cavs anymore, you know.
And like Jimmy, in a way, kind of sleepwalked. He's been sleepwalking to those numbers, and they felt quiet, at least to me. You know, like at one point I was like, how does Jimmy have the same amount of points as Bam, right? And it's like he's just doing a lot of just Jimmy stuff, right? Like slipping into the right spots. He's been more of a screener this series, which I thought was interesting. Yesterday looked at times like he just did not really want to participate in offense in a scoring way, which I understand, and I imagine the ankle is a little tender. He's a little bit more passive driving. Like he'll go in and he'll pump fake like 3 times and then he'll like kind of come out. So that he hasn't like had to like engage that part of his game. It does look tender, but he's still, and the shooting percentage has dropped a little bit. But you know, he's been successful on post-ups, which I think that was kind of something that, you know, hasn't been there this year for him, but you know, historically he's really good. I thought the switch, by the way, from Hart to Grimes was probably the right choice for the Knicks, but I thought it was a funny choice considering that I'd heard a lot about how Josh Hart was gonna be the Jimmy stopper. And
who? I have to stop you. From who?
Oh, like Twitter.
Ah, okay.
Like just
Gotcha.
just like Twitter, like the thing that is Twitter. And I think Hart's done like a pretty good job on him. I just think that it's he's too small, Ernie, and you know he just gets bulldozed by a guy that's just like way stronger than him. And really, I mean, if Jimmy was doing that to Drew, I will say that like he does the thing where he plays Jimmy up a lot closer, which I think kind of bothers Jimmy, which Drew didn't do because Drew has like a longer wingspan. But I think Jimmy's comfortably kind of won that matchup, and Quentin Grimes is another guy that I think he kind of handily wins that matchup. The Knicks haven't really thrown enough size at him, which I think has been weird, but they have thrown a lot of help.
Yeah.
So, but I'm going a little all over the place because
you're right though. Like the 2 games this season are 2 different coverages this season that I was curious which direction Thibs would go. It's how they guarded Giannis and it's how they guarded Luka. So in the Luka games, it was like, let Luka get his. You remember that game? Luka had 60, 20, and 10. It was against the Knicks, and nobody else had a good night. Like everybody else was bad. And the Knicks were up 9 with 29 seconds left and blew that lead. It's one of the greater anomalies and collapses in Knicks history. It ended up not mattering in the grand scheme of things, but like that game, they were like, just let Luka get his and we'll make sure nobody else gets going. And to the large part, outside of the once in 13,884% chances of happening, that's the probability for blowing a 9-point lead in 30 seconds left, by the way. Not that I have that number memorized.
Not that you've ever looked it up, you know.
Point being, like, they largely were successful in that kind of coverage. With Giannis, the second and third time they played him, that wall that you've seen Jimmy have to face this series, where it's like any type of penetration he gets, they're putting multiple people in front of him, they're helping a ton, and it's like if we're not gonna let Giannis beat you. If Grayson Allen or Joe Ingles or somebody else beats you, then we'll live with it. And that's literally what they've tried to do this series, which is why you've seen 2 things, in my opinion, happen. you've seen Max Strus and Caleb Martin and Kevin Love and Kyle Lowry and all these other role players and Gabe Vincent really get going and beat you this series. And this is a credit to Jimmy, the passing out of the double team that he's done all season, all series, the playmaking for his teammates that he's done, the amount of dunks that the Knicks had, that the Heat had in game 3 and game 4. It was like, I think we're treating Jimmy Butler like he's Michael Jordan. Now, granted, in the first round, he looked like Michael Jordan, but the emphasis that all of our film guys has been saying is like, as good as Drew is as a defender, like you said, he's not the biggest of defenders, and Middleton is nursing an injury. You've got bodies to throw at him. Let him be spectacular first, and then if he is, you adjust. But this is like the biggest criticism I have for Thibs for this series is they went in with this game plan, switched up the starting five that's worked all year, and put Josh Hart into the starting five. And while they've taken Jimmy, the insane shot maker, out of play, they've turned him into a playmaker instead.
Playmaker averaging 27 a game.
Right, like he's getting it in different ways. Like he's not averaging 35 a game anymore, is what I'm saying. Like the Bucks series does not exist. But that's the other part that no one wants to say on Knicks land that is defending the decision that Thibs did to put Josh Hart in the starting five, is it hasn't really worked. Jimmy's still getting his points. But I say all that to say that Jimmy, while he is like a great player, I would have rather them like let him get going first and then adjust. And Thibs just seemed to have come in with this game plan and sacrifice spacing and sacrifice shooting and sacrifice the formula that worked all season. And it's why Knicks fans are really frustrated today.
Yeah, and so they put Hart in the starting lineup, and it's pretty clear that Miami is going to treat him the way Boston has treated PJ Tucker against Miami and Philadelphia. They're like, we're just going to help off this guy.
Gee, it's how the Knicks treated Isaac Okoro. It was exactly. Like, just let him shoot, you know.
And it was popularized. It was called Tony Allen, Allening. Warriors,
Andre Robersoning.
Yeah. All you know, that's a name. The Mavs actually did it, and they called it Haslaming. I think that's like the first instance where I've seen it named. Yeah, which UD killed the Mavs in that series. Not killed, but really kind of dented them. But it makes sense, right? You're just gonna help it, and then that guy is gonna, you're only strong as your weakest link in these kind of high leverage situations. I like the adjustment by New York to be like, okay, well, Josh, if you're gonna get the ball in the corner, close out, like drive to the hoop. Yep. I thought that kind of gave him a little bit of life. And then Miami was just kind of sending that help from the nail a little earlier. And I thought their rotations have been really good. And I don't think the Knicks have enough shooters that they can swing the ball like boom, boom. Because they really just lack shooters. And it's just kind of discombobulated offense unless it's like Brunson do something. Brunson find a favorable matchup, which Miami has also just stopped switching and giving it to him. Ever since game one, after the first half of game one, they were dropping, whoever they were putting in, letting the guy fight back. I mean, yesterday, Randle was trying to get favorable matches in pick and roll, and Bam is staying on him, right? They're not giving up the switch. They're making sure that they stay home. They crowd the paint. They crowd the ball. Jimmy at the nail, I've talked a bunch about, kind of really key to that. And they've employed very similar kind of strategies, right? Crowd these really good players, whether it's Brunson or Randle or Jimmy. And obviously those guys aren't like the level of playmaker. And for Brunson, I think the size is a factor too, because Miami's help is big. And I think that's like the big adjustment by Spo here, where that help used to be really small. And if it is small guys, it's Kyle who is like trying to rip the ball from you. So it makes you kind of have to go a little bit quicker than you want, because if you bring the ball down, he's there to kind of act. And yeah, it's just been interesting. It's just like nothing has really worked for New York. They never really have had a thing, Andrew, that I felt like they have gotten going. I don't know if you feel like they've done, if anything that you see that they've done, you're like, I like that. We need to build on that. Everything they kind of done, Miami's had like a little bit of counter for it. We talked about kind of the rebounding at the nail. I just talked about the dropping, them kind of building the wall. They've all done these little things, and it just hasn't worked out. I want to know if there's something, if you think that there's a card to be played.
So, a card to be played. So I'll respond to your question with a question. Do you look at game 2 as like the only reason the Knicks won is because Jimmy didn't play? Like, be honest. Like, if you do, that's fine.
I think I think Jimmy not playing was a yes, and I think I don't like doing the referee thing, but I thought the Scott Foster thing was
the 4-point play.
I'm not gonna do the Scott Foster show, but they don't call that man the extender for nothing.
I also have a highlight reel of illegal screens by Bam to go to if I want to talk about the referees.
I want to say something about illegal screens. Illegal screens are the meta. Draymond does it. Garnett does it. Bam has gotten good. Your guys have highlighted it. You can't fucking call that every time. And it's why I forgot what's the dumbass coach that challenge. Oh, it was Bud. He challenged an illegal screen. I was like, that's so stupid. Every screen's illegal if you letter by the law. Don't challenge that. Like not every screen, but like there's a lot of them in the league are illegal. Like letter of the law. It's why
if you're pointing to one specific challenge, well, not even a challenge.
I was talking about Bud's
Is
challenge.
this the 4-point? But like the 4-point play that happened in game 2. Like if you're pointing to just that,
yeah, that was weird.
The Knicks got a break. I think the bigger break was
Jimmy not playing.
Well, okay. Yes, I was more talking about the ball that hit the rim. That Vincent had it. Like the Knicks got a couple breaks down the stretch.
Andrew, that one bothered me, and that one I'm not blaming Scott Foster for that because when I was watching in real time, I was like, that didn't hit the rim. But it did.
Why it's not challengeable too? I didn't understand.
Because you can't challenge a call that was never made.
But wasn't a 24-second shot? Like
that's not
can't
a call.
You challenge?
That's just what happened. You know what I mean?
So because it's not technically a call.
Yeah, you can't challenge. You can't.
Okay.
Like you can't challenge a no call on a foul, right? Like if you felt your guy was fouled, you can't challenge that. You can only challenge a foul that you feel is not a foul.
I guess what's not computing for me is like a 24-second violation to me is something that is called.
I guess
like you violated something.
The rules.
Right, like that is a rule that you broke.
Well, like
you
even
didn't
Andrew,
get a shot off in 24
let's say
seconds.
they can challenge that. Even if at best they have to jump it up at center circle.
No, Vincent had the ball. That ball landed in his hands. That's a Heat possession, if anything. By the new rule of like
he get possession with 14. That's not 2 points.
I'm not even saying the 2 points.
So like
it's what then led to the other. Like they were down one.
I'm just saying that like that bothers me because like even if you do that, like it's like what happened at the end of that Bucks game that never mattered. But like Lowry got the steal, and they said, okay, well he didn't have definite possession. You got to jump it up. When in reality, like that was points. You know, he was gonna get the ball. It was kind of the machinations of because I made a call, the game has to stop, and the way that the game was gonna flow, blah 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 blah. But to kind of circle back, I thought game 2.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, and the reason being is because you kind of saw how Miami fell apart late without kind of a guy to hub. And listen, Bam has gotten better through the series, but I didn't think he was 100% healthy. I think he's starting to look like himself again. He did have the hamstring, which again, you're out there, you play, you got to be accountable for what you're on the court for. But in reality, Miami just did not have a guy to kind of settle their offense, which is usually Jimmy or Tyler. And Tyler's not there either, and he's a big part of their team. So, yeah, that was kind of where I was at. I was like, well, Jimmy didn't play. The Knicks made shots, right? Miami has not really changed. They have not overreacted to New York having a good shooting day, just like Milwaukee. They've kept their defense and all that stuff. So that's kind of where I'm at with that game.
Well, actually, so where I was going with my point was that I don't think it's that Jimmy didn't play. I don't think as much as the officials did play a role in that, I just personally don't like to. Unless
I don't want to do the scuffle. I don't want to.
Yeah, I don't like to do the.
Yeah, because I don't like when other teams do it. Listen, it happens. Everybody gets favorable shit at some point in the series. I don't want us to be that show. But yeah,
where I'm going with this is that it's the only game the Knicks shot well from 3. They went 17. They shot 40% from 3, made 17 of them.
But I think part of that's Jimmy, Andrew, because I thought that was the only game that they got real downhill, consistent penetration. And because Jimmy's help at the nail, I think is so important to Miami's defense because they're really not a big team. And you need that wing to stunt on those drives to give your guards a chance. And I thought New York did a really good job of getting in the paint, like drive, pass, wing 3, blah, blah, blah. Without that line of defense, that now becomes Max or that becomes Gabe. Or I think Lowry's your best option there, but you want him as a low man, as a charge taker, as a guy who kind of strips. So that was, I think, and I said at the time, I go, they miss Jimmy on defense more than they miss him on offense because New York is getting in the paint, and that's the only real time they've done it.
Whether Jimmy, like, I'm obviously gonna give Jimmy the credit that he helps on defense.
Yeah.
I still like the Knicks looks in game 1, and they shot 7 of 40.
They shot
like
that,
that,
and
that's where I'm going with it. The rest of the
progression to the
series,
mean, all that
every
stuff, yeah.
single time that the Knicks have lost, I'm not blaming, like, I'm not saying the Heat haven't forced them to get away from their penetration offense, although I liked the offense that I saw in game 4. And to your original question, which I'm going to answer, like, the thing I liked about that honestly, the only offensive thing I've liked so far this series is the lineup they went down the stretch. Now, it didn't have RJ, didn't have Mitch. They went to Quentin Grimes, Josh Hart, Jalen Brunson, Julius Randle, and Isaiah Hartenstein.
Randle at the, yeah.
Randle didn't take a shot in the fourth quarter too, which is another weird thing about this team. Is I'm sure you have a Julius Randle question, but to my point, that specific lineup that I'm talking about in just 14 minutes has a 146.2 net offensive rating, and I'm like, shouldn't matter what the defensive rating is, but it is a positive 42.3. I'm not saying it would be that over an entire game or if the sample size got bigger. They have tried it throughout the series at times, and it's led to tiny runs here and there. But it's a lineup with spacing, and it's the one lineup they've gone to that I've thought has worked the best throughout the series, and it's specific lineup combinations that I wish Thibs would try that isn't like very hockey shift ABA. Like, okay, our point guard's off, now our backup point guard comes in. So that's really the only time I've liked the offense. As far as like the shooting goes, it's why I give Spo the most credit. Now, you guys went to a zone in game 2, which might have also contributed to
and they
them shooting well
that.
from 3.
They do that without Jimmy because then when Bam's off the floor, now you get real dicey because now you have Zeller or Love. You don't have a wing defender that is like, I mean, Caleb is technically a wing, but they like him on guards. That he doesn't do well against guys bigger than he is. So
they played a lot of zone in game 1 too, right?
Not too
was it
much.
A mix?
They kind of did not really play a lot of it, as far as I remember. I might have to go back and check.
It was just pack the paint. You can't.
Yeah, it was just
So it's not necessarily a zone, but this is why I say I like the looks the Knicks got. While there's that incredible freeze frame that I put up during game 1 of all 5 Heat players in the paint while Jalen Brunson's driving,
really funny.
And you see okay, Obi Toppin's on the wing wide open, RJ's on the wing wide open, Josh Hart's on the wing wide open.
I think that fucks with you, Andrew. I think if you're like one of those guys, I think that fucks with you because then those shots aren't in rhythm because the guy that gets in the paint off that kind of defense, he's going in and because he's seeing so many bodies, I just don't think the passes are great. So it's like when you got to reach over, kind of come back, readjust, think about it. And you're just like, man, they just really don't respect me at all. And I got to imagine that psyche plays, and that's kind of, we've seen it, enough to feel that.
It's why if I had to I haven't liked much of the Knicks offense throughout this series. And it's literally just the one game that they made threes is the one, because I mean, you found this out, I think, during the season. They have a formula. I think you even mentioned it before the series, also with your conversation with Nikias. The Knicks offense is very solvable. Take away offensive rebounds. Don't turn over the ball a ton. Yeah. Don't foul so they don't beat you at the line. And the fact that you've neutralized that and made them take threes and have to beat you by playing basketball, it's now led to this where the Knicks are being beaten by not being able to shoot really well. And the tough part is that a lot of Knicks fans are like, well, it's because Josh Hart was in the starting 5 over Quentin Grimes. Well, Quentin Grimes up until yesterday had made 3 field goals in the playoffs. So I can't necessarily point to that being the fixer. I do think the Heat would have guarded him differently if he was in the starting lineup from game 1. I can't say that 7 for whatever it was in game 1 and 8 for 40 in game 3 is all because of a starting lineup change. Jalen Brunson is 2 for 19 from 3 in the 3 losses that they have. Julius Randle. Julius Randle is having one of the series of all time. We could just talk about it now. He's having a trust issues series because Knicks fans are still scarred from 2 years ago when he turned into a pumpkin against Atlanta and convinced TNT and ESPN that Trae Young was doing anything other than shooting inefficiently in a 5-game series. And then this postseason, they really didn't need him against the Cavs. It was RJ that took a leap. And in this series, while he helped them win game 2, these last 2 games in Miami have really been like indictments on his Knicks legacy. And the trust is just out the window. He either needs to lead them to a game 7, or we're going to be back to a summer of like, what do you do with Julius Randle? Even though I think the front office's answer is nothing. You know,
it's kind of difficult to see. Like, you know, it's a tough spot. I don't want to talk too much off season, but it's certainly a tough spot for New York. Yeah, I saw somebody in chat say that they're surprised that they haven't gone more of Randle at the 5. They did it a little bit.
You don't know Tom Thibodeau.
Yeah, trust me, we're familiar with this guy.
Yeah, well, that person, I'll say Tom does. So I'll say this: John Macri, the host of our show, and I, we had a bet before the season because he has the utmost trust and faith in Thibs. He is a Thibs apologist, for better or for worse. I do think like way too much shit gets thrown at the coach, but that's every fan base except the Heat. Although I remember listening to
listen.
I listened to Hangover Times after some regular season.
People were mad at Spo.
Point being, Thibs is like his religion is 48 hours of rim protection, and John before the season was like, let's make a bet on how many minutes Obi and Randle will play together, because I believe he does trust Obi.
That's
and we'll
so
go
funny,
to these
Andrew.
Smaller lineups. And I was like, over under 99.5 minutes together. And if it's the over, I'll buy you whatever drink you want at your favorite bar in Brooklyn. And if it's the under, you buy me something. And it barely cracked 60 minutes this season. So
yeah, I mean, and that's something that's played. So if you're, I was going to say Chicago. I'm so used to Thibs being a Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
If you're New York, your offense is kind of stagnant. You're not getting enough looks. I think part of it is you don't want to simplify Miami's defense, because now you're just bam on him. You don't really have to worry about like you're getting killed on the boards. You could probably even switch more, and you can probably muck up Randle a little bit more. So I get why they don't do it. I'm just surprised they haven't tried it more. Maybe they just know. And again, if I'm Spo, I want that. Like that's a move I want, right? I'm just like, oh, we could play our stuff, because right now they're not like playing their base stuff, right? They're dropping, they're doing shit that they don't do normally. So yeah, it's just kind of like that interesting pillar has been weird. If I'm the Heat, I'm going into game 5. Not much. I think that they don't have to do much. I think that, you know,
as far as adjustments go,
yeah, I think they're.
Why would you change anything?
Yeah, no, and because I mean, I don't think New York showed anything in game 4 that you're like, okay, they should prep for that. I saw somebody in chat mention Gabe guarding Brunson full court was nice. Yeah, that's something that
such a Spo. Bravo.
No, but that shit, because Spo loves to make Gabe get his steps in. That's like that's a Spo special with Gabe. And I get
why he did it, right? Like Brunson had to play because Quickly was out. Brunson was going to play as close to 48 minutes as possible. So guess what? You're getting pressure from the third quarter on.
And they don't have
time
enough
you get
ball
inbound the
handlers,
ball,
Andrew. And I think this series has kind of highlighted that weakness of their roster. They don't have the ball handlers, especially with Quickly out, to have enough to kind of easily beat that stuff. I don't think New York gets into offense quick enough, which is something that Miami did not do this season. And this series, they're moving. They're getting into sets really quick, which just kind of surprised me. But even Gabe, early in the series, I thought Brunson was kind of really, really just torturing Gabe. And I think as the series has gone on, Gabe has kind of adjusted to the strength of Brunson and kind of his movements, and I've said on the show, he's a good player and his movements are very fucking weird. And that throws dudes off, right? Because he's like has really good change of direction and he has great body control. So that throws motherfuckers off. Gabe, I think, has adjusted really well, and they've kind of set help. So if I'm Miami, I don't think you got to do much. I think you kind of live with the shots New York is taking. I don't think I don't think Grimes did enough in that game to make you be like, okay, well, we got to change. Maybe play him a little differently if he hits some shots. But yeah, I don't really think there's too much. But if you're New York, you know, you're kind of running out of time to have a trump card.
Kinda. Down 3-1, you know. Like
do you feel they quit, Andrew? Do you feel like
no?
You don't feel
well.
There were times in that game that I felt it was there was a little bit of quit in them, and it wasn't as hard as it should have been. That did not feel like a playoff game.
So there's two sides of that. I don't think.
I want to clarify something before you go. I don't like calling professional athletes quitters.
Oh yeah, and I get it.
I just want to be clear. There was something. The vibes were not there. Is kind of where I'm going. Yeah.
And that's like really noble of you and really respectful, and I appreciate that. I'm about to do it with Julius Randle. I don't think Jalen Brunson quit. I don't think RJ Barrett quit. Mitch is this weird. It's this weird personality.
That man was on Twitter at 4 a.m. fighting with people.
Believe this afternoon he has a I'm out here I'm helping on every play. Like, why am I getting called out?
That shit was so funny. That was at 4 a.m. And
yeah, so it was earlier than I read it. Then. It was 4 a.m. The point being is, I think like the majority of the rotation, and I thought they played hard last night. I thought the fourth quarter was so annoying because they were gassed. Like I attributed the offensive rebounds to fatigue, to that is again the Thibs staple of get to the elbow, get to the line on long threes, is like, oh, so they're not executing, and that preaches fatigue, especially when I've seen them do it this year, and that's why I attributed more to that. The lack of effort from Julius Randle in the first half, those turnovers that turned into pick sixes, look no further than like this clip that's going around today. Shout out to Zach Blatter over at the Strickland, where he did a whole thread of Julius Randle walking in his defensive rotations, not even putting a body on a pick and roll, a pick and pop that led to a Kevin Love three, not even bothering to actually run Max Strus or Gabe Vincent off the line. There is a Kevin Love blow by of Julius Randle. Like, gets the ball on the wing and then just takes him to the rim. You are an all NBA player, and the ghost of Kevin Love is taking you to the rim. Like, I'm sorry, the effort just was not there. And then he goes on the post game yesterday and says that maybe they wanted it more. Maybe.
Dude, that was fucking wild for you to say that.
For him to say that.
Like you of all people.
Yeah.
To say that. Like, that was fucking, like, dude. Like, if Draymond says it, it's different. You saying it is like fucking. I had to. Andrew, I had to double check to make sure that I wasn't being got by like some fucking AI thing.
And the full quote being like, we need to decide if we want to, because the question was about 50-50 balls that the Knicks have gotten to all season that they're not getting now. And the extra effort, because the Knicks are not going to be able to outshoot you or out talent you. The whole season it's been, we're going to out tough you. We're going to out execute.
They're doing the Heat thing. Really. They're doing they're really doing the Riley Heat thing.
Well, we look at it as the Riley Nick thing, but I understand why you would go to that way. The point being, hearing him answer that with like, maybe they wanted it more, and then follow it up with like, we need to, as a team, figure out if we want to do those extra things and give that extra effort in order to continue our season. And I'm just like, you're saying that. Like, you're the one saying that. It's like if Bernie Madoff was like, oh, well, you got to make sure your finances are in balance and, making sure that you're checking your accounts and making sure money's all in the right place. Like, you're not the messenger for this conversation, my friend. And so while I've done a lot of defending of Randle this year, I can't help but be disappointed by that first quarter effort. I commend him for hitting tough shots, which he's done all season. Like 20 points on 13 shots is actually like a really efficient offensive game. I thought this was a game that your all-NBA all-star was supposed to get 30 and have like 15 boards and be a difference maker on both ends. And we just didn't get that. He looked like he was here to get his points and contribute in certain ways. I know he's missed time with an injury. I know he's probably not 100%. Jalen Brunson's dealing with a hip, an ankle, a hand. Like, he's 6 feet tall and getting targeted on every defensive possession, and he's playing his heart out, keeping this team with a pulse down the stretch. I've got so much smoke for Julius Randle, and it's so disappointing that this guy that I bought back into is now going out sad like this.
You're just like, I can't believe he brought me back in.
Yeah, it's very much like Godfather 3. Like, just when I thought I was out, when he hit that shot against you guys earlier in the season, I was like, all is forgiven. You've now given me a memory against the Miami Heat.
To say we're back after saying it's over.
Yes, now it's the opposite.
It's like I feel like Knicks fans are super out on him.
It's hard to trust a guy like that, especially now that look. I will say
It is funny,
the larger
though.
context of this season and what it's been. I need to pull like receipts of myself being like, just win a round and I'll be happy. Because they won a round. I'm happy. It sucks that this is going to be a chapter in the Knicks.
Andrew.
Listen, it's not even that the expectations. It's if we had lost to the Bucks, it would have been an honor to lose to Giannis and the 1 seed on their path to a title. Now, like the 8th seed, that the Heat are going to beat us.
A team that you guys thought
in that rivalry.
A team you guys straight up thought you were better than.
I still do.
Yeah.
I think you've outplayed a team that's better than you. That's the Heat's motto this entire postseason. I think the Knicks were better than the Miami Heat. I think the Heat outplayed a team that's better than them. I did that in the first round, too. It's a credit to the Heat. It's not a knock. Come on.
I'm old enough.
Gee, you were the 8th seed.
I know. I'm old enough to remember when I was on your podcast and I said that Miami would win. And I was called crazy. I'm old enough to remember. But
you did.
Listen, Miami had a
clearly overestimated what Julius Randle would be in the postseason.
We talked about how miserable a fucking season this was as Heat fans.
Mm-hmm.
And credit to them. I mean, they turned it around. The Spopa-dope is real, as Chad says. Their defense doesn't have the same bite as last year. And yet they feel they're getting production from guys 3 through fucking 12, really.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that is pretty incredible. Like, if they are so lucky to not so lucky, but if they are to make the next round of the playoffs, as my camera goes out twice in the same show, that's a record. They're gonna probably have to cut their rotation. You kind of wonder if the Zeller and Highsmith minutes kind of come to an end. Bam has to play 38, and Love is playing some backup center minutes. That's TBD to see who they play between the Celtics and the Sixers. Truly a run of hatred of all time for me between the Knicks and then one of Boston or Philadelphia. Now, Andrew, I hate Philly more than I love Oxygen.
We share this. I hate that.
I hate Embiid. I hate them so much.
Yep. Rocky's overrated. That show, I'm so glad it's filmed in LA.
Rocky stinks.
Yeah.
Although I'm at war with Knicks fans, and I'm at war with. I even had to tweet mean to Ben Stiller the other day.
Yeah, I saw that.
I love Ben.
I had
the
to.
Parents
I had
is my
to
favorite movie. I was like,
ignore and not react. I was like,
I love Ben Stiller. Ben, I'm so sorry. Unproblematic king. I take it back, Ben.
Yeah, you were in the Wesley Snipes New Jack City.
Yeah, dude, that's exactly what it was.
Exactly.
I called him irrelevant, and he only had 1 hit.
Mm-hmm.
That's not true, Ben. I love your movies.
And that's where, I saw the tweet, and I was so close to going cinephile on you. Then I was like, hater first, analyst second.
There we go. You get it.
Ignore it.
You get it.
Ignore it.
Oh,
I get
that
the
was,
show.
Andrew,
yes.
that was on fucking like 8-Mint Juleps.
I figured.
After I lost like $300 on a Japanese horse.
I took a step back before I hit send. I was gonna be like Tropic Thunder, me, you, and like
classic
the show on
bangers.
On Apple TV right now, Severance, Escape from Dannemora. Like the guy is not only a great actor, he's a great director. And then I was like, hater first,
not canceled.
Second.
One of the rare
rare
guys that lasted without getting canceled. So, but. Andrew, thank you for making the time for our silly little program. It is fun. It is interesting. I didn't want to come on here and shit on Knicks fan. That's a hangover time thing. If you want that, just
I hate to say this, as much as I've become a fan of Miami Heat being a hangover time, I've chosen to opt out of the most.
No, you missed yesterday. You missed.
I did see the 2-minute clip. What are they listening to?
The Knicks
Sports
Spaces.
Talk Radio?
No, Knicks Spaces.
Oh, listening to Knicks Spaces.
Listen,
that's what
I can't take much credit for things on hangover time. That was my idea. I'm so glad that has gone well. We did that last year as well. Just listening to Sixers Space. It really, the genesis of it was, how can I laugh at Sixer fans more? Sixer Spaces were wild, bro. They were fucking wild. We had what's that guy? KD, don't you regret coming to the Knicks?
Yeah.
He was talking about
Danny
us
Durant,
in his spaces. Yeah. He's like, oh, we got fucking Miami Heat beat in here. Like,
yeah.
I'm glad New York's familiar with our game, but all in all, I think the series has been kind of a very strange basketball series where there's been a lot of little adjustments, not really big ones.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes, sir.
Before we go,
absolutely.
So I have to ask, not that I'm admitting defeat, but I'm considering the evidence in front of me, expecting it. Who do you like in the third round of this playoffs? Like either Boston or
Who would
Philly?
I rather play?
Yeah, like who would you rather play?
Oh, if Miami were to win this series, I would rather play Philly because I think Miami has shown you the formula that they know how to make Embiid a turnover factory, and Harden's little run is cute. That comes to an end.
Okay.
Yeah, and I will say this, and I've talked to Boston people. You know,
They hate their team.
they hate the shit they say about Jaylen Brown. Which
Honestly, but both teams hate their team. Now that I think about it, both teams hate their
I just
team.
think that Boston, they're both kind of shaky. I just think Boston would probably be tougher to score if you're Miami.
Mm-hmm.
I think
I do think the coaching advantage is huge, though. I will say that.
on both sides, really. I mean,
True, but like Doc, you can at least be like been there before. Listen,
I guess.
Get down 3-1, and then like you got them right where you want them.
Ubuntu.
Yeah, I'm saying the Missoula factor.
Missoula
I would
looks
not
fucking scared, bro. Have you seen him?
He does.
He looks fucking scared, dude.
I don't know if it was a pod we did during the season or not, but I've been on this since the Knicks beat them in overtime in January. That like we got to look at the Celtics run last year, and while they're the defending East champs that were 2 wins away from a title, it wasn't like this dominant,
they're shaky, dude.
Overwhelming
shaky.
thing. They were tied or trailing in the fourth quarter of every game of that Nets series, losing that series through 5 against Milwaukee. We're a shot away, and honestly a healthier Heat team away from not making it to the finals, and then probably should have beat the Warriors and lost the series they should have won. So I'm not as like the Atlanta series probably should have been a sweep. Went to 6 games.
That was to me the moment where I was like, oh no, this team's like a lot more. I thought they were vulnerable going in. I mean, that was the matchup. I told myself going into the play, and I'm like, when I was classic counting my eggs before they hatch. I was like, I don't know if I told you, I made fucking plans that Friday of the Bulls playing game because I thought that Atlanta one was so secure. And I would have told you, yeah, I like the Miami matchup against Boston. I wouldn't pick them to win. I think they could push them to 6. You know, me thinking of a bad Heat team. You know, not now. Whatever we have now is where it's a little different. But
can I ask you one more question?
Yes, sir.
I know we're running long, but
listen, I have time for you always.
So, if they win against Atlanta, how does the playoffs play out?
That's a great question. I think so. They have. I don't know. I've thought about this a lot, and I don't know. Obviously, Giannis going down really kind of tilted the axis of the league. And credit to Miami because, A, they won all 3 games that Giannis played. And B, they played really well. They just looked awesome. They looked awesome. I don't know if that was a little bit of revenge from them as well. I don't know if Jimmy could have done that against Boston, although we saw him do it last year. Absolutely shredded them. The drop that Milwaukee employs allows Miami's role players to get a little bit more involved, and I think that series, in a weird way, got those guys going, and it's carried over. Andrew, I'm a little worried because, listen, we've talked about this. These are not the 2 best teams in the Eastern Conference.
No.
The competition from Milwaukee to New York is like obviously a downgrade. I think even the most strident Knicks fan would agree. I'm a little worried about intensity ramping up because I did not feel like that was a playoff game, and Game 3 felt like a playoff game, but yesterday did not. And I mean I'm not picking. Listen, I don't pick shit. I don't want to jinx anything. And I don't know because Miami can come out and not know how to shoot the ball again, and then all of a sudden we're talking Game 6. But there's a world where New York comes out a little flat and they pack it in. That world exists, right?
I'm not as confident as any Nick and 7 fan that's out there. I kind of think Wednesday is Judgment Day.
Yeah, and like that could happen. Like they could come out and they could have a bad shooting night, and Randle could be fucking pissy, and Brunson's the only motherfucker out there trying shit, and Mitch with his fucked up hip or whatever, and like, oh yeah, we'll pack it in. I mean, we've all seen it, right? There's plenty of teams have done it. So they would have like kind of these 2 games of like kind of blah, and then they'd have to go into maybe a series that these guys just played a 7-game, barn burner. So I don't know. I don't know. I do know that I like the Philly matchup more than the Boston matchup. I think that they have a recipe to defend Embiid, and make him turn the ball over. Harden just does not scare me. I don't know. If you switch Bam onto Harden, it just short circuits him. And he had one little cute game against him in the playoffs, and I saw what he did in an elimination game. They know what they're doing. Missoula's not him, like the way Spo is.
Yeah. I think so. I'll just be totally honest with you. There's two parts of what I'm about to say. I like you guys against Boston. It's funny you say against Philly. I think that series goes 6 or 7. I have no idea what version of Harden you're getting, what version of Embiid you're getting.
I don't know who I'd pick, but I like what they can theoretically do.
Right. This leads to the second part. I kind of need the Miami Heat to take either win the conference finals and go to the finals.
Listen, the second they beat the Bucks, it's like they can't lose to the finals because I'd have to deactivate.
Right, because I also, like, as a Knicks fan, will sleep better at night if it's like, oh, like the team that made the conference finals showed up last year. The team that was a shot away from the finals showed up. Jimmy Butler legacy run. This is his Hakeem in 95 playoff run. Like, we were part of history. Like, I can live with that if you were a stepping stone to an all-time greats history. And just a reminder that as cute as you're welcome. As cute as this Jalen Brunson and Julius Randle thing has been, you need to go get one of the top 10 guys. And I hadn't said it on Knicks Film School yet, so I'll leave you with this. Like, we did a Patreon power ranking of the top 10 players remaining in the playoffs when the second round started. And I went 1 through 9 and was like, I haven't listed a Knick. And it's like, do I go James Harden or Brunson? And I was like, okay, because this is a Knicks podcast, I'm going to say Brunson, but I'll hear out James Harden. And that was the first indication of like, all right, maybe there's a talent thing that they are not going to be able to overcome as we get later on. And I wonder if against a team like Miami, that shows up. And unfortunately, as great as I think Brunson is, and as great as I think he's been, honestly, since game 2 of this series, I have to now go back to understanding that it's great to have depth, and Memphis learned that the hard way this year, that depth doesn't always win you everything. But that was my first indication that maybe some things are going to have to continue to go right in the margins, and they just haven't for us this series.
I'll leave us with this because I do want to shout out Bam for 1 second, because I think he has gotten a lot of ire from the fan base, but the way he's played on both ends has been sensational this series. He's had games where he's not the most complete offensive player, but what he's given you on defense, I think, is just cannot be stated enough. He is one of the best players in the league, and I think he's a beyond the box score kind of guy, just like Kyle. And his impact every night, and you've seen it in that Milwaukee game, in Game 5 on a closeout, he will clamp the best player in the league when it counts. And I think you, as Knicks fans, have seen as well. When rubber hits the road, he's been, when games matter, he plays his best defense. And I think Randle has seen it, Brunson has seen it. Everybody has felt it. I think on defense he has been felt as a rebounder. He's been felt against guys that are bigger than him. That a lot of people thought that New York's front court had the advantage against Bam, as an undersized center. But I just want to give him his flowers, man, because he's gotten shit. And, New York basically just mowed maybe one of the darling front courts in the league. And for Bam to kind of have raised level, just want to give that guy a shout out because I love that guy. And I think that he deserves more love from everybody. Another second team, all defensive accolade for him today.
Congratulations to Bam.
More first. What's funny? Fans are like, "Yeah, that's nice. We need more firsts up in here because he's that good." I don't see Brook Lopez playing right now, but
it's why it's a regular season award. It's why I'm slowly starting to realize how very little the regular season matters now in today's NBA.
Between Miami and the Lakers, they're just
dude. If that's the finals, 2 play-in teams, one that lost the play-in game. If that's the finals,
Andrew.
Adam Silver.
All-time hater run for me.
Yep. Yeah.
All-time, bro. It's fucking that.
You get the
that
Bucks,
would actually be
the Knicks.
I'll actually end with this, Andrew. If they win the title off that run, I think Jimmy's the second greatest Heat player ever.
Jeez.
I think you got to give it
ahead of Wade. Ahead of Wade.
No. Well, Dwayne's the first.
You just said that you think Jimmy's the greatest Heat
I said
player
second
ever.
greatest. Oh, I said second
Oh,
greatest.
I thought I heard first.
No, second
okay.
greatest. Yeah, second greatest.
So that's not already true.
Depends who you ask. I think a lot of Heat fans will say that's already true. I think he does need the title, although he's knocking on the door. You know, LeBron was great, and I said this on Twitter.
That was hired help, though. You know,
that's what he was, and and I said on Twitter, he did not love us, and we, I think people want us to simp after this guy who didn't love us back, and that's not what the fan base has done. There's a respect. Everybody here wants his jersey up in the rafters. There's no debate. There's a love and respect for that guy. Maybe a respect for that guy and a love for what he gave us. But there's not like I love him. I wish the best. And I think Jimmy has Jimmy's fucking, you've seen it. I mean, he's, and then even after the games where he's going to eat pasta and fucking playing guitar, it's just like, who is this guy? He's awesome.
He is Heat culture personified, and it's why the trickle-down effect he has on the rest of the roster that is different than what the Heatles were and what the Big Three era was.
He's not easy, and as the Heat say, they're not for everyone. He's not for everyone, but kind of enjoying this run. And we'll see what we get after Game 5, if we're getting in Game 6, and where that series goes. There's a lot of story left to be told here. Andrew, my friend of Knicks Film School, thank you for joining us. Thank you for making the time for our humble show, Mr. Top 10 NBA Global Apple Rank, all that shit. You guys do a fucking phenomenal job. I have so much respect for this guy and everything he does. He's a good man, and he's really good at what he does. Plug your shit. Where can they find you? What do you have coming up? Convince Heat fans to listen to your shit.
Well, specifically, if you want to hear Knicks fans be miserable after the 3 of the last 4 games of this series, you can check out Knicks Film School as a podcast, wherever podcasts are available. You can check it out on YouTube as a YouTube channel. We just search Knicks Film School. We do post-game shows after every game. We go live. We do super chats where people can donate and have their chat read or comment read and then analyzed live on the air. And we've actually had some Heat fans infiltrate the super chats and say a lot of $5 for Heat in 5 that have been out there. So if you want to come and get $5 for the Heat winning in 5 games, I will hate it, but also not complain about it. And then
get that coin.
Exactly. And then if you want to check out Knicks Film School and all of the work we do on social, it's at Nick Film School, SKOOL, because we're cool like that, on all social media platforms.
Make sure to check him out. Make sure to give them a listen. And make sure to tune in. Sorry about pregame. We didn't have a pregame show yesterday, but Frankie is back, baby. Coach Lou is back. I'm back. We're all back. We had a lot of people were on vacation this weekend. Okay, a lot of us didn't know that this might be happening.
Can I do one thing? I know it's not part of this show before, because again, I've become a fan of Miami Heat beat outside of the last 5 hangover times. Take me out, Brass.
Take me out, Brass.